You're watching WRKM Channel 22, number one in the region. The following WRKM broadcast for mature audiences only, especially tonight considering the subject matter. The number one song of the time was In the Year 2525 by Zager and Evans. It painted a nightmarish future with the following lyrics. If a God's a-comin', he ought to make it by then. Maybe he'll look around himself and say, I guess it's time for Judgment Day. The number one movie was Midnight Cowboy, where a dishwasher quits his job to become a male escort. The Dodgers had beat the Cubs 5-0, and Nixon was enjoying his first summer in the White House after running a campaign with the slogan, Vote like your whole world depended on it. The 60s were drawing to a close, and free love was on its last legs, and some would say the events of the evening would be the final death nail for that time period. It was in the evening that Sharon Tate, Jay Sebring, Abigail Folger, and Wojciech Frykowski were murdered by the Charles Manson family. There's a story that we know. Then there's the story that new research tells us. Tonight, we will go through some of that new research in hopes of finding answers, or maybe uncovering new motives, and potentially CIA involvement. It is the night of August 8th, 1969. Let's have the talks we can have when the sun is up. Good evening. I'm Ralphie Martinez in This One in Darkness. A group of people are driving down the road consisting of one man and three women. They're driving a 1959 Ford Galaxy, and they're on a mission. Their one mission is destroy everything and leave a message given to them by their leader. They would tell people later that they were on a mission to kill piggies. Who were these people? They go as follows. Susan Atkins, born in San Jose with two alcoholic parents and a brother who molested her along with his friends. She found what little peace she could find being part of the church choir, but eventually she would leave San Jose for San Francisco, where she experimented with LSD and became a stripper. She had been cautioned her entire life she was going downhill, but as she puts it, I just went downhill and all the way rock bottom. Patricia Kernwinkle was also going by Katie. She grew up with a hormonal problem that caused her to overeat. Growing up in Inglewood, the kids would tease her all the time about her size. In her teens, she got into drugs and booze. One day, she decided to stop showing up for work and never collecting her final paychecks. She would go missing in the hippie scene. Linda Kasabian was a high school athlete in New Hampshire and was previously married to a man in Boston, which that only lasted about 6 months. Wasn't long before she was caught up in narcotics and relocated to Los Angeles and started a new life with a husband and child. Then there was golden boy Tex Watson. He was exactly what a Texas family could have wanted. Handsome, football star, kept his nose out of trouble. When he finally went to college, he started smoking weed and eventually would ditch books for the carefree lifestyle of California. Oddly enough, as fate would have it, he would be the hitchhiker that Dennis Wilson would pick up. And that act of charity would go on to lead to his meeting with Manson, and of course, become the history we know. When they arrived to 1050 Seattle Drive, there was a white Rambler out in front. It was Stephen Parent, 18 years old. He had arrived to sell the caretaker of the house a clock radio, which clock radios were big at that time. I had a clock radio, and that was in the 90s. I can only imagine how big they were in the 60s. They probably felt like space-age technology. Just selling clock radios, man. Tex Watson runs to the Rambler, slash his arm, and shoot him 4 times, which killed him instantly. And that was just the beginning of the massacre. The shots would go unnoticed by the residents of 1050 Cielo Drive, and the residents were the following people. Sharon Tate, who was 8 months pregnant with her husband and famous filmmaker Roman Polanski's son. Word around town was Sharon Tate was looking for a divorce from Roman at this time. He had been treating her pretty badly, forcing her to have sex on camera, and according to close friends, she was waiting for him to come back from the UK to give him the papers for divorce. But of course, he at the time was in the UK scouting, or as some would put it, fucking, and wasn't at the home when the Manson family arrived. Then you had Jay Sebring there, who was the father of modern day hairstyling. He was born Thomas Crummer, but he said, fuck that shit. I need an LA name. So he went by Jay Sebring, the last name being a reference to the 12 Hours of Sebring in automobile racing, one of the best races in all of NASCAR at the time, or endurance racing, which led you to get to the 24 Hours Le Mans, which if you watch Ford vs. Ferrari, they have to race that in order to get in to Le Mans. It's a really good movie. You should check it out sometime. But the crazy thing about Jay Sebring here was he was the ex-lover of Sharon Tate. And he was looking to get back in after his divorce got finalized. And many people were saying he was next in line because all through the pregnancy, he was there to make sure she was doing all right while Roman was going around fucking questionably aged children. Do I gotta put allegedly on this? He's got a goddamn case against him. He hasn't come back to the United States about it. For all we fucking know, Roman Polanski sent Manson to kill him. I'm not saying that. That's not even the theory we're exploring on this episode, but I'm gonna say it because it makes me feel good. Fuck Roman Polanski. But awesome Jay Sebring. I wonder if this would have been a hairstyle that Jay Sebring would have suggested for me. I think this is a good one. You know, short on the sides, a little long on the top. Fashionable. Abigail Folger, which you guessed it, that Folgers. She worked for the University of California Art Museum in Berkeley. Then she left to New York where she worked in a bookstore and was a social worker in the ghettos. So I instantly feel she's the real victim here. Here was she, you know, using her privilege to be the best white woman she could be. And Manson took that away from us. A good ally in the struggle. Not saying Sharon is any less. Not saying Jay is any less. But you're the Folgers fucking coffee heiress. And you're like, yo, let me help underprivileged people. That makes you a cool person in my book. Am I wrong for saying that? You're looking at me like that, Bobby. I'm not wrong. I'm a good guy for saying that. She's a good person for doing it. But unfortunately, she had a shitty boyfriend. Let's talk about a shitty boyfriend now. Wojciech Frykowski was an aspiring screenwriter and filmmaker. He had survived the horrors of World War II in Poland and was in America wandering aimlessly, running up Abigail's money, as one does. Now, does that make him a shitty boyfriend? Kinda. But he wanted the American dream. He was having the immigrant story. You come over after World War II. Your entire country got decimated. You meet Abigail Folger, who's a fucking good-looking heiress to a coffee empire. Of course, you're gonna, you know, live off her money. Is it wrong for a man to live off money? Kinda. Mary J. Blige's ex-husband's doing that now, isn't he? Living off the alimony? Even though he did nothing and she did everything? When you say it like that, it kind of makes me want to reverse my opinion on it. Not that he deserved to get killed for that. No. Not saying Wojciech deserved it. I'm just saying Abigail deserved to survive. And so did Sharon. And so did Jay. And so did Steve Parent. Those other people could have survived. Wojciech, I'm not so sure. Tex Watson cut the screen door open, saw Wojciech laying on the couch, went to him first. Wojciech was scared shitless because, you know, he was smoking a joint, watching TV. And when someone sneaks up on you in that way in the dark, is kind of scary. So I guess I'm kind of sympathizing with Wojciech a little bit. He asks Watson, who are you? He says, I'm here to do the devil's business. And that's what they proceeded to do. They would use the blood of their victims to write the words pig. And I also believe, what was the other word? Yeah, political piggies and stuff like that. Because they were hoping to implicate the Black Panthers to start a race war. The next night, the same crew went out again to Los Feliz. This time, they were not alone. They brought Clem, who had been a musician for the family for some time. They brought Leslie Van Houten, who is a former homecoming queen. And this time, their leader, Charles Manson, would be with them on this murder. Which, you know, it's good to show up. You're leading people. You're telling them to go do stuff. Should you not be there? Should you not be the one orchestrating things? It sounds like he wanted to run an organization where things got done for him. But then when the kids did it, he was like, well, damn, they're going to get credit because they went and did it. And now my ego is hurt. So now I have to go and do it. And I'm going to pick the people we do it to. And he did. Driving around for quite a few hours in Los Feliz, they found a house that Charlie used to live in. And then no one lived in that house. So next door they said, well, fuck it. They'll do. And the LaBiancas, they were simple folk. They weren't rich people. They were not Hollywood elites. You know, the husband owned a grocery store. The mom was a well-meaning housewife. These people were not necessarily the big-time starlets that Sharon Tate were or any of the Hollywood people they would get involved with were. But for the pure bad luck of being or living next to fucking Charles Manson's old family home, and they too wrote Pig, War, and it's a third one, and Helter Skelter in their blood to continue to send a message. Though Charlie didn't kill anyone, he stipulates. He just organized things and had them do it. Sounds like the typical American manager, doesn't he? Not getting his hands dirty. For a guy who was all hippy-dippy and anti-establishment, he was doing some real capitalistic shit. My opinion of his managerial skills. You can't talk Charles Manson while talking about Helter Skelter. Everyone knows what Helter Skelter was. It was the race war idea that we're going to kill a bunch of affluent whites and blame it on the Black Panthers, start a race war. And if we're lucky, or if they're lucky, they'll hide out in the desert and the race war will start. And then Charles Manson will come back and lead the black people in victory in this race war. Which, to me, just has all kind of white savior issues. Like, it feels like he thought he was Michelle Pfeiffer in Dangerous Minds, though that movie had not come out yet. Is he the precursor to the white savior trope? Maybe. He was white savioring in real time. That's not good. Kind of proves the point, doesn't it? That we don't need white saviors, because either you turn out like Michelle Pfeiffer in Dangerous Minds, or you turn out like Charles Manson. There's no in between, I think. There's no in between. But was Helter Skelter even true? Like, was it actually his political philosophy? Maybe. Kinda. Who knows? That's what we're going to attempt to figure out tonight. That's what we're going to try to answer. And the only way to do that is you got to go back and look at his origin. How does Charles Manson become Manson?
I am a mechanical man. A mechanical man, and I do the best I can because I have my family out. I am a mechanical boy. I am my mother's toy, and I play in the backyard sometimes. I am a mechanical boy, and there's from the time.
Some would say that is the closest he's ever gotten to talking about his mother in a very open fashion. What we do know about Charles Manson's mom only comes from research. what we know about his life only comes from research. So much of it was caught up in the mysticism and the mythology that he had built around himself that no one can ever give you a clear answer. But we will give you some clear answers. Charles Miliez Maddox was born November 12, 1934. Scorpio. Scorpio. I'm not saying anything in Scorpios. I have Scorpios in my life. Just saying. Cincinnati, he was born to a teenage mom in Cincinnati, Ohio. Manson never met his dad, but due to some research or finding a paternity suit that was in Kentucky, we can give you the man's name. Colonel Walker Henderson Scott may have been Charles Manson's father. Now you're thinking, whoa, she pulled a military man. Nice pull for a teenage mom. The problem was Colonel Scott was a bit of a con man. He had been known around town to do these elaborate lies, which, you can kind of see where Charlie gets it from. He wasn't, in fact, a colonel. His name was Colonel because somehow in the late 1800s and 1900s, we thought that was okay, naming kids Colonel. Who names their kid that shit? You want to name kids Captain? Is Captain Crunch's real name Captain? No. He has a real first name, I think. Oh shit, let's look that up. Does Captain Crunch have a real first name? Captain Crunch first name. He does have a full name. Horatio Magellan Crunch. The good, decent people of General Mills knew to give that man a first name and not name him Captain. But not the Scott family, no. We're going to name our kid Colonel in hopes he becomes one, but he becomes a con man instead. It's like naming your kid Jesus. You only set them up for bad things. It's a well-known fact. Naming your kid the biblical things, that's a really tough spot to put him in. The only people I know who haven't fallen into that trap, like Noah's or like John's, they turn out all right. But if you're Jesus or Moses, you're fucked, objectively speaking. Your parents set you up for failure and for the darkness to find you. And if you found the darkness, you should watch this show, This Man in Darkness, a hell of a lot more. We could use the viewership. But Manson's mom was no better. Kathleen and her brother Luther, which that's another name. I've never met a Luther that wasn't a criminal. And you can't say Martin Luther King because that's not his first name. That's his middle name. Doesn't count. Name one Luther you know that isn't a criminal. Luther Vandross? Luther Vandross is a criminal. His music steals my heart every time. But she was in and out of jail a whole lot. Hence, Charles hung out with his aunt and uncle a lot. And his uncle had some weird ideas like don't trust the government, don't trust the schools, don't trust the economy, which sounds a lot like the stuff we say here. That's a little troubling that me and Manson's uncle have some things in common. He's not wrong. He probably should have told Charlie sometimes to believe in things like follow the law, don't break laws. But they never got to that lesson. Charles was out there being a renegade kid, getting into fights with kids, you know? Then he went from Dennis to Menace to full-on terrorist when he tried to light a school on fire. Which, once again, not a defense. But the kid had a vision for what he wanted his life to be. He wanted to do great big things. So he went out and tried to do a great big thing. That's objectively not good. But it showed initiative. You know how much fucking work it takes to try to burn down your school? I don't even know if he was... Did he actually succeed? He tried, but he was not successful. This is the beginning, really. This is how it starts. If you start failing at the big stuff, you feel weaker and weaker, so you start, lashing out more. having more visions of grandeur. So you go from lighting your school on fire to having a cult. We'll get to that. So as he's bouncing around from juvie to juvie, he meets Blackie Nelson, who's also a kid who's bouncing around from juvie to juvie, whose uncle's a career criminal and takes them both under his wing to teach them how to rob people at gunpoint. Which, shout out to Blackie Nelson. We hope he's doing okay. We hope he became the best criminal he could be, or he didn't become the best criminal he could be and became something else. But we want to give a shout out to Blackie Nelson. He was probably the only friend Manson really had that Manson hadn't tried to rape. Because that's what started to happen. Manson went from trying to burn down a school to raping young boys. It was an escalation of sorts. The power dynamic thing is really huge with him. Really huge. His mom would come out of jail every now and then and try to raise a son she didn't want. She tried to trade him for a pitcher of beer once. Not the best mom, but you get the mom you get. And to be fair, Charlie said his mom being out of jail and barely raising him was some of the best times of his life. And if you consider how things turned out, it's pretty fucking sad. Years ago, she would marry Eugene Manson, and that's how Manson went from Maddox to Manson, and he just kept the name because, his daddy didn't want him, so you might as well keep the name of the one guy who was kind of semi-decent to you. Jesus, this guy's got a sad fucking life. But all this trauma didn't stop Rosaline Jane Willis from marrying Charles. She was a hospital waitress. She dug his vibe, I guess. I don't understand how you can dig this guy's vibe with that kind of death stare all the time and not think he's kind of a psycho, but she was maybe into it. Maybe she liked the unhingedness. It's exciting in the 50s when you think about it. Who's that crazy in the 50s? They're exciting. They have things to say. Everyone else is boring, you know? Everything's black and white and boring, even though for them it was in color and was probably more interesting, but because I live now and they live then, all their stuff's in black and white, so I automatically think their lives are boring because it was in black and white. It's like that movie Pleasantville. When they start getting excited about stuff, the show turns into color. Or when they start having sex for the first time, the show starts going into color. Is this ageism? Am I just shitting on a prior age because I live in a much better age? But then let's be honest, am I in a much better age? Who's to say? The Mansons aren't necessarily starting cults anymore in secret. They're starting them on Instagram. Manson was arrested again, but let's be honest. A man chose a profession and he was going to stay dedicated to that profession. For what this time? More than likely Grand Theft Auto. It's kind of one of his favorites, really. He really likes the stealing of cars. And who doesn't want to be behind the wheel of a hot car you don't own, driving down the road with the police trying to catch you? It's kind of the way you want to go out. Maybe that's what inspired the ending of Thelma and Louise. They wanted to go out Manson style. But you want to hear some wild shit? While he was staying on McNeil Island, where he participated in several hypnosis experiments, which also included, I shit you not, Danny Trejo. Danny Trejo and Manson were in jail together. Part of the same hypnotic fucking experiments. Danny Trejo didn't become a fucking Manson cultist. Shout out to Danny Trejo for not doing it, though. If Danny Trejo did start a cult, I'd be in. I'd be 100% in. That's a cult I want to be a part of. Oh shit, you ever seen the movie Machete? In the movie Machete, he has an army of guys carrying machetes. Did Robert Rodriguez know? I'm watching Machete later on. But Danny Trejo would be a great cult leader. That raspy voice, it would feel like having a strong dad go, hey kid, let's go do some cult stuff and chop people up with our machetes. And I'd be like, of course I will, because you're just so lovely, Danny Trejo. You're just so lovely and protective, and you make me feel safe. Here's another thing you didn't see coming. Manson was studying Scientology. I got the notes right here. While incarcerated with the help of fellow inmate Lanier Rainier, that can't be a real fucking name. In July 1961, Manson listed his religion as Scientology. September 1961 prison report argued that Manson appears to have developed a certain amount of insight into his problems through his study of the discipline. Another prison report in August 68 stated that Manson was no longer an advocate of Scientology. Upon his release in 1967, Manson traveled to Los Angeles, where he reportedly met with local Scientologists and attended several parties for movie stars. Manson completed 150 hours of auditing. Manson's right-hand man, Bruce Davis, worked at the Church of Scientology headquarters in London from November 1968 to 1969. L. Ron Hubbard was this close to having his own fucking assassin. Imagine fucking Charles Manson telling L. Ron, listen, all right, the only way we're going to fix people and get these fucking Thetans out of them is killing them. And once we kill them, the Thetans get out of them and go back to where they belong. This could have been the fucking Marvel Cinematic Universe collaboration we needed. Two vile villains coming together to pull off some wild shit. And I need to be careful about what I say about Scientology, because I still want to meet Tom Cruise someday. And I still would like a part in a future Mission Impossible. So just put on the bottom, this is a parody thingy. So Tom Cruise is not thinking I'm being serious when I say L. Ron Hubbard is just a more sophisticated Charles Manson. Let's just push that out there, okay? I still have dreams. I have dreams. Like Charlie kind of had dreams, or L. Ron kind of had dreams. But my dreams are a bit more safe and non-threatening. It's all about being in the Mission Impossible movie and dying in the Mission Impossible movie. You know, I always thought Tom Cruise would make a really good Jim Jones. I think so. I think if you put the fat suit on him, he'd make a great Jim Jones. He probably would have made a great Charles Manson too when he was younger. Connecting it all together. But really imagine that. Charles Manson, the Scientologist. Miscavige would have never risen to the top. Charles would have had his ass on lock. What could have been? What could have been? And what we also know is Charlie is really into science fiction. Who would have thought? But like, really think about it, right? Danny Trejo in the same hypnotic experiments as Charles Manson in jail, right? They both get out. Danny Trejo sees Charles Manson join the Church of Scientology, but he joins the Church of Scientology as an undercover agent because he knows what Charles Manson's up to. He knows he can't be trusted. And he's going there to get close to Manson to take out Charles Manson. Now, as he's there, he also discovers L. Ron's Hollywood industrial complex scheme of him taking over more and more celebs, and now Danny Trejo has to stop the Church of Scientology. This is what could have happened if history had gone a different way. That's not a bad movie. You can't make that movie now, of course. Danny Trejo's still alive, so he will never sign off on this movie. And Scientology is still very powerful. But if we could just do like inspired by, like hit a little inspired by kind of thing, like do kind of a close adjacent parody to this idea, this could be something. This could be something. Manson had decided to stop jumping around and decided to settle somewhere as every man reaching his late 20s, possibly mid 30s, should probably find a place to settle down. You can't keep running around all the time, bouncing from jail to jail, even though he so desperately wanted to stay in jail. He actually petitioned, could he stay? Because he had zero plans of doing anything in the outside world. And you have to respect that level of self-awareness, that he knew for a fact that I'm trash and I shouldn't be out there. I would like to stay. Why didn't we let him? In hindsight, we should have. It could have turned out all right. If we had just let Manson stay in prison forever. If a man decides, hey, I enjoy the comfort of my cell. I like the friends I've made. I like the guaranteed meals. I like the idea that I'm a caged animal and you fling things at me when I'm hungry. You know? Maybe he knew. Well, we were all soon to find out that he wasn't made for this world. That he wasn't made for this society. This sounds like a lot of copping for Manson, but it really isn't. I just feel if someone is self-aware to tell you who they are, you should listen. And we didn't. But of course, he was also a charming fellow. So maybe people thought they were getting conned. Maybe they looked at it as if we keep him here, he's conning us out of government taxpayer money to live rent-free and pay no taxes, which taxation is theft, a good friend of mine once said. R.I.P. Fernando. Wow. Didn't think I'd bring up my homie in the middle of a Manson special, but I think he would have appreciated it. So where did he end up going? Old Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco. Haight-Ashbury was once an upper middle class neighborhood before World War II and the Great Depression, but it had fallen on bad times, and as the 60s came in, so did the damn panhandlers and the goddamn dirty hippies. Soon in 66, the first head shop would open up, which would sell LSD and marijuana to the hippie community. Soon, places like the Blue Unicorn would open up as well, and several other like-minded businesses. And this became the center of Haight-Ashbury hippie life. This was the community you hung around. You were on acid, you were smoking marijuana, you were expanding your mind, man. You're living a whole new world, bruh. We are expanding the horizons of our psyche, man. The subconscious is where we belong. The conscious is dangerous. I don't know. I never met a hippie. The only people that are like hippies now are like fake hippies. Like hippies who have good jobs but believe in crystals. Those losers. The crystal hippies have ruined it for all the other hippies. Truly. Everyone, just because you grow your hair out of your armpit as a woman does not make you a hippie. In order to be a hippie, in my opinion, you have to be dirty, straight up poor, and want for nothing. But if you are able to shop at, Zara while still pretending to be a hippie, that doesn't make sense to me. That is not how it works. Either wear only flea market couture or you're a goddamn normie. As for the men, half of them are bullshitting the way I think about male feminists, like Josh Whedon, for instance. Like, male feminists are always like, I'm for the cause, but are they really? Male hippies are only in it for the hippie girls who they think are loose. But I don't think hippie girls are loose. I think hippie girls can sniff a fake hippie a mile away. And maybe that's why Manson went to Haight-Ashbury. He wanted to be a real hippie. He wanted to really get into the subculture. All these years, he was just a degenerate, running wild, possibly joining Scientology, but he said, fuck it. I'm going to dedicate myself to a new way of life. Peace, love, and all that stupid shit. Does that sound judgmental of the hippies? I don't want to be judgmental of the hippies. They're trying their best. But their best wasn't good enough. But during this time, Charles Manson decides to read a book. And that sounds funny, but it might have been the most dangerous thing Charles Manson can do. The one thing you don't want a psychotic person doing is reading a book that makes them feel good or gives them ideas, because then they start going, well, I'm actually in the book. But here's the thing. I don't even think it's psychotic people. I think it's most people. I think when people engage in a form of art, movies, music, books, they start seeing themselves in it. But there is a limit to seeing yourself in things. There is a limit. When Walking Dead was out, people were like, I'm totally Daryl. You're not Daryl. You're not. Just because you're smelly and wear a jean vest and you're cold and emotionless does not make you Daryl from Walking Dead. He has more characteristics that I don't remember because it's been a long time since I watched that show. You are not Jon Snow. You are not a bastard son of some royal shit. You're simply just a bastard. And that's okay. If the Battle of the Bastards taught us anything, bastards can wage war as good as any other kind of bastards. Or any other kind of people. That's what I took away from that episode. Bastards' lives matter. And Manson was a bastard. So maybe in that he was like, you know, I need a book that speaks to my bastardism. And boy, did he find one. Welcome to this first edition of A Psychopath Reads a Book. The plot of this book, in my opinion, is the actual origin of Charles Manson's beliefs. And believe me, when I detail you the synopsis of this book, you will agree with me. It's so spot on that the fans of this novel spent years telling people he didn't get it from that book. No, not our sci-fi book that we love so much. That I question people who are fans of this book. What the fuck? What the fuck is about this book that you like so much? Valentine, who is a human raised on Mars, returns to Earth to foster a perfect race. He is protected by a man named Jabal, and he begins to assemble a group of women he calls his nest by using sex to initiate them in. The group does everything together, even sharing water, which is considered sacred. Which in my opinion, if you had just switched out for LSD, it fits right perfectly in to the Manson mythos. It also had a concept where killing people saved their souls, which according to the novel, gives them a second chance in the cycle of reincarnation. So the group's nest goes out and kills people. Eventually, Valentine becomes a Christ-like figure due to all of their power and all of their work from his nest. Does that sound familiar to anyone? Does it not sound like something he was talking about? He spent all this time talking about kill your ego amongst his followers, and we all have to be together in this. He was giving them LSD, he had them fucking each other. The guys were fucking guys, the girls were fucking girls so they can get their sexual inhibitions out the way. He was a guy, a stranger from in a strange place, which is Haight-Ashbury. And now look at him. He thinks he's a Christ-like figure, huh? But he needs Jabal though, because that's the key. Valentine has a Jabal, and you don't want to not have a Jabal. And he gets one in the form of his parole officer, Roger Smith. Roger Smith had been assigned to be his parole officer, and let's just say Roger Smith was no regular parole officer. Right? Like when other women of the Manson crew that he was slowly amassing in Haight-Ashbury would get into trouble, Roger, he would write glowing reviews about why they should be able to get parole, which, you know, sweet guy, helping out your parolee's friends when you get a chance. But it got a little weirder. When one of the Manson women was going to prison for about, I think, 2-3 months, she was also pregnant with a child, Manson's child, and he was named Michael Valentine. Does that sound familiar to the book we were just talking about? It does. So what does Roger do? Roger takes the kid in for 8 weeks while she goes and serves time. What parole officer do you know is taking in his parolee's kid? Which one? Who are they? Direct me to them. I have some questions. What are you involved in? How charmed are you by this criminal? What does the criminal want from you? What do you want from the criminal? This is what the fucking cycle starts to go off in my head. The gears are going because I'm highly confused as why this Goddamn parole officer thought it was totally fine taking young Manson. And it's not even like a Hitler scenario, right? Where like, if you can go back in time and kill baby Hitler, would you? Because he knew Manson was kind of a little bit of a psychopath. He spent enough time with him, talked to him a little bit, and went, oh, this guy's really fascinated by a novel. But in Roger Smith's mind, he didn't see it as a bad thing. He kind of saw it as, oh, wow, look at Charlie. Charlie's reading books and he's dreaming. He's having dreams. Good for him. So you're probably asking, why? Why was this parole officer so close to Manson? Well, they had a bit of a different idea about parolees and the parole officers during this time. They were both part of what was called the San Francisco Project. The San Francisco Project was there to test the variety, I guess, of ways one could approach the parole system. How much time you spend with your parolee, what do you do for them, how invested in their life you are. And Roger was heavily invested in Charles. So invested that out of 41 clients, the other 40 just magically disappeared. He was no longer assigned to them anymore. It was just him and Charlie all day, everyday.com, just having a grand old time. His office was also in a free clinic where, convenient, oh, one of the girls got a STD. Fantastic. I can cure that. I got a doctor for that. Bring him down to the clinic. So Charlie's getting free gonorrhea treatments, free chlamydia treatments, which that's kind of not bad, actually. That's actually kind of cool considering how whorish the Haight-Ashbury scene was and how dirty the hippies were. Them fucking hippies, man. Stay clean. Stop spreading gonorrhea. But they couldn't help it. It was free love. But Charlie was hanging out with this guy all the time. And this guy was invested in Charlie and his family. And he thought very highly of Charlie while also telling people he was kind of a psychopath. But do you take a psychopath's kid for 8 weeks? Do ya? Do ya? But it wasn't all about Manson, I believe. Allow me to read some notes I have here about Roger Smith. In '67, he was regarded as an expert on gangs, collective behavioral violence, and drugs, which is exactly what Manson was about to do. He gained his expertise while being a student at Berkeley conducting a study on Oakland street gangs, analyzing as they did certain drugs to mellow their desires and certain other drugs to heighten it. This is where his cozy behavior with those he was supposed to be studying began. He created outposts and hangouts for his subjects and did a bit more of an immersive approach. Like he was their buddy. He's like, hey, you know, I know you're committing crimes. Here's some LSD. Yeah, that's crazy. You know, you want to commit a crime today? You want to go rob somebody? Here's some speed. He was so giving to these experimental gangsters. And he also advocated that none of these people should be prosecuted because they were in his experiments. So it's not their fault, really. It's his fault. This study you can read. Google Roger Smith, Oakland Gang Study. It comes up. We do not have a copy because you have to pay for a full copy. So we read someone's breakdown of the study. Bobby and Donnie were not willing to fork over the cash needed to unlock the study. And I will be judging them for the rest of this episode. And maybe that's why he barely reported Manson getting arrested all the other times he did while being under his supervision. Because Manson did. He kept doing it. He wasn't stopping committing crimes. He likes crime. He enjoys it. He doesn't believe in the law. Roger Smith certainly didn't believe in parole either because he just let him do it. At any time, Roger Smith could have revoked his parole, but didn't. Why? Because it's Charlie. It's Charlie. That's my guy. That's my dude. Oh, come on. He's a good guy. He likes weird sci-fi novels. We have fun. He's constantly offering me his women, though I never accept or have never been known to accept, but I keep doing it. I'm a good parole officer. I also have started a study in Mexico about cartels in a similar vein to my Oakland gang thing. And I conveniently want Charlie to go to Mexico so he could work on a job for a guy named Dean Morehouse. And Dean Morehouse has a job for Charlie in Mexico. So I'm petitioning the parole board to let him go. You've denied me once? How could you? Charlie's a good guy. Sending it again. Denied twice? What? How can you not let Charlie go to Mexico and not necessarily be overwatched by anyone whatsoever? No overseeing his actions. I'm just sending him out there. He's a good guy. It isn't like Charlie went anyway and then someone found out later on that he had spent the winter in Mexico conveniently as Roger Smith was running this study. Now, was he a simple fucking parole officer? No, he wasn't. He was a fucking student at Berkeley running experiments. He was studying sociology and shit like that. So technically being a parole officer was like 2% of his day, really? He only had one client, so it's called 2%. He wasn't really interested in the paroling. He was more interested in the experimenting. So what? Charlie's a good guy. No harm will come from this. None. It isn't like Charlie's going to spend time with the Sinaloa cartel. Though we have no evidence that he did, he was certainly in the districts in which the Sinaloa cartel were there. Now, a message to the Sinaloa cartel. I'm not trying to rat on you guys at all. This is not about you. Y'all keep doing whatever you want. I like Narcos. I'm a huge fan of the original and Narcos Mexico, so I'm not trying to get involved. If you guys want me to do something for you in which my character then gets casted in a Narcos thing, I won't kill anybody, but I would like to have a badass scene where I shoot a guy in the leg. I am down to help the Sinaloa cartel by any means, if you'll have me. But I am not ratting on the Sinaloa cartel right now. I'm ratting on a dead man, Charles Manson, because he can't get to me. Some of his followers might still be alive, so I gotta be careful, actually. We might need some security around studio at some point. But let Charlie go to Mexico, people say. And he just went anyway. That's the beauty about Charles Manson and his parole officer. He just willy-nilly did whatever he wanted to do. And apparently, it wasn't just Roger Smith doing this. Apparently, multiple people have said that this guy had some weird protection in the Los Angeles Police Department and Sheriff's Office. We will now play some audio from Preston Gilroy, who was talking with Mae Brussel on her old school radio program, Dialogue Assassination, where he details how Charlie was utterly protected within the Los Angeles Sheriff's Office and no one knew why.
And then after I met you, you told me how you worked in the Sheriff's Department, and they arrested Manson and let him go, and even had foreknowledge of him before the Sharon Tate massacre, that he could have been confined in jail and those murders wouldn't occur. Isn't that what you told me?
Exactly. Manson was on federal parole. There's no reason why he should have been on the street at the time the Tate killings went down. Very simply stated, Manson was on parole from 1967 forward. During that period, I know of no job that he held, which would have constituted a job as the parole board looks upon a job. He was living at the Spawn Ranch, not a place where a parolee normally is expected to live. He had access to alcohol, narcotics, and illicit sex. When I say illicit sex, I'm talking about minor girls. And all this was going down in with full knowledge of his parole officer, as well as the officers at Malibu Patrol Station.
And machine guns. You
machine
forgot the
guns,
weapons,
right.
The parolee with the weapons.
When I was there, when I was at Malibu, we knew that there were machine guns being fired on the Spawn Ranch. We had citizen complaints about this. We had firemen who were on the fire trails and were stopped by members of Manson's band who were armed with machine guns and told they couldn't go there because, they were using this road or something. And while this was going on, we were forbidden to make arrests. The station had a policy prior to the Spawn Ranch raid, which was for grand theft auto. Our policy was make no arrests, take no police action towards Manson or his followers. And needless to say, any thinking officer would have said, this is fuzzy thinking. Why is he being left on the streets? Because there were numerous crimes being committed by Manson and his group In case in point, Manson was arrested once prior, to my knowledge, once prior to the Spawn Ranch raid. He was arrested for a statutory rape. And there were just so many things going down which were criminal in nature, but no action was taken. All this information we were directed to put on a memo with a cover sheet so it couldn't be read by people who didn't have business reading it, and was going directly to intelligence via the station captain. And we don't know what intelligence was doing with all this information, but we do know that the officers in uniform were being used to a certain extent to keep Manson under surveillance. I don't know if Manson was under surveillance by intelligence or not. I can only speculate. My best guess is, you're damn right he was under surveillance. Yeah. If not by our intelligence, by some intelligence.
Tell about your arrest of Charlie Manson and how they let him go the first time, when they could have held him.
The arrest of Charles Manson at the Spawn Ranch was the biggest circus I've ever been involved in my life. We attacked the Spawn Ranch on a day, Saturday morning at dawn, 1 week after the Tate killings. Our department supposedly had no knowledge at the time of the Tate killings and Manson's involvement in the killings. We had 102 deputies. Now, the entire strike force consisted of all of the SEB, Special Enforcement Bureau deputies from L.A. County, plus most of the men from Malibu. And 2 helicopters and about 35 to 40 radio cars, and I thought we were taking Iwo Jima, to be quite frank. I was waiting to put up a flag. But we got in there and we started kicking doors down. We had a search warrant for grand theft auto. And Manson was arrested and very brutally beaten by the Enforcement Bureau deputies.
Really?
Yes.
That wasn't...
He was found hidden under some steps in one of the fake storefronts at the Spawn Ranch. And this didn't go in the arrest report, of course.
They hurt him.
They hurt him.
Yeah.
Very definitely. They wanted to hurt him because Manson was it was a sexual thing with the deputies at Malibu.
Yeah.
Manson was a local stud, and he was he was held in contempt by the deputies because Manson had an ever-ending supply of pretty young girls at the Spawn Ranch. And a lot of the deputies were, quite frankly, on it, envious. This scrawny young, ex-con scoring constantly, and they were, going home by themselves. But anyway, I'm digressing. The thing was that Manson was not very well liked because of what he stood for. He was everything that the rank and file officer was against. I mean, he didn't stand for motherhood or the sanctity of the church, and Sunday football and contact sports, and he wasn't a He-Man.
But still, the orders, they don't arrest him. That must have killed the deputies. They couldn't arrest him. They couldn't.
Not until we had this beautiful arrest warrant, the search warrant. Then we could arrest him. Yeah, but subsequently to the arrest, the charges were dropped 72 hours later. Which
were the guys on the force mad? Were they suspicious?
They weren't suspicious. I don't think they were aware enough to be suspicious. It's just that they started thinking about this and they said, "Wow, what a big farce! So much manpower." It was like we were doing something perhaps a week late to show that we had really been watching Manson. And now here's an interesting hypothesis I'm going to discuss. Now, if we were watching Manson prior to the Spawn Ranch raid and Manson committed these killings, we would have seen Manson. Okay. And if we weren't watching him prior to the raid, how did we justify getting the search warrant and making the raid?
And the helicopters and...
Yeah, everything seems to cancel everything else out in this discussion of what Manson was about and what our intelligence was about. I don't think Irving Kinerick, Manson's attorney, has been able to gain access to the Intelligence Bureau's reports on Manson.
Why did you leave the Sheriff's Department? What was the thing that made you leave?
I left because I contacted a radio station in Los Angeles, KLAC, which at the time was a news station, and I told them about the cover-up of the Spawn Ranch raid. And
what bothered you about it?
Well, the fact that I noticed too much information being suppressed for political gain and for prestige.
And you didn't even know they were involved with the Sharon Tate thing at the time?
I knew this. I made this disclosure the day that the Sharon Tate, the Manson arrest was announced by the L.A. Police Department in Inyo County.
But you felt that the whole law enforcement group was putting something down on the actual murders of the people involved?
Yes, I had a feeling that the whole thing was being used politically by the sheriff and by the district attorney. And there's a lot of interplay between the sheriff's department and the L.A. City Police because they're both large agencies in Los Angeles, and they're always jockeying for political advantage in the county.
Yeah.
But I just came to a point where I saw too much going down, and the Manson case was just something which was too great to go unheralded to the public. I just felt that people had to be made aware, if possible.
So
I was very naive when I contacted the press, and I felt that, wow, they'd really jump on this, and they'd light up torches, and we would stop cursing the darkness and light a match.
Well, how about that? The cops were said that Charlie was banging everybody. What do you want him to do? He's a guy with LSD and speed. Women will drop panties for LSD, apparently, in the hate in the 60s. I don't know if they're dropping panties for LSD anymore. Do you think they're dropping panties for LSD, Bill? Come on, Bobby. They gotta be dropping panties for LSD. Is your generation dropping panties for LSD? Not my generation. I'm not dropping anything for LSD. I'm not even gonna drop LSD. LSD seems scary. Really scary. Not interested. No, thank you. Now, DMT, maybe. It only lasts 15 minutes. But what I'm scared of is, what if I do DMT, right? And I've read a lot of books. And what if I, think about one of the books I like, and now I start trying to live out that book in my own life and start a cult and cause problems? That might be an issue. That might be a problem. It happened to Charles Manson. I don't want to be Ralphie Manson. I don't want a cult. I do want a cult, but not like that. Like, I want a different kind of cult. Like, I want a cult where people give me money, right? And I give them something back. Like friendship, hugs, good advice. Like a church, I guess. Or the Catholic Church. I want to be that kind of cult. But not the molesting of boys, though. See, this is the problem with cults. Like, there's always this... It's fun at first because everyone's all free love and stuff, but then there's always that weird thing where they get into crime, and I want to be in a cult or start a cult that gets close to crime but never commits the crime. We'll look into that as we take this break. More Charles Manson after this. Now, here's how I think we could do this cult.
Wow, it's so fast, I don't know where to look first.
Well, you have to keep your eye on the ball.
Oh.
One thing about Eli, it's never dull.
More than I can say for these cigarettes.
How's that?
Dull taste.
Well, you go for these.
Cool. Oh, I'll try one.
Come up to the cool taste. The coolest taste in any cigarette. Get Cool's white filter. Rich tobaccos too. Taste extra coolness. Let Cool's come through for you.
Enjoying it?
Uh-huh. Taste of this cool, too.
Come up to the cool taste. The taste to stay with every time you smoke. G.I. Joe, G.I. Joe, fighting man from head to toe, on the land, on the sea, in the air.
G.I. Joe attacks! Boom, boom! G.I. Joe takes the hill! Bam, bam! Horrific battle!
Terrific equipment to have a battle with. When you get G.I. Joe and the authentic G.I. Joe equipment, you'll have the greatest realism, the greatest fun you ever had in playing soldier. Box after box of authentic uniforms and equipment, so you can change your G.I. Joe soldier into a camouflage Marine ready for battle, a Navy frogman with complete scuba suit and inflatable life raft, an Air Force pilot with high-altitude helmet and air vest. Get G.I. Joe and get G.I. Joe equipment so you can set up exciting battle action whenever you want. Remember, only G.I. Joe is G.I. Joe.
Welcome back. As you know, this show has many enemies. Bohemian Grove, rich elites on both political parties, Harry and Meghan. One particularly that's more of a historical villain for us are... what was it, Moriarty? It would be a Moriarty. See, I'm Puerto Rican, so half of these names don't work for me. But our Moriarty, see, I'm never going to get this right. The Sherlock Holmes villain, let's call it that. Let's call it that. There's one guy that is that for us, and it is Alan Dulles. And he conveniently is tied to all this, and I conveniently have a book passage I'd like to read. I wonder, Dulles told the gathering, whether we realize how sinister the battle for men's minds has become in Soviet hands. The human mind is the most delicate of all instruments. It is so finely adjusted, so susceptible to the impact of outside influences that it is proving a malleable tool in the hands of sinister men. The Soviets are now using brain perversion techniques as one of their main weapons in prosecuting the Cold War. Some of these techniques are so subtle and so abhorrent to our way of life that we have recoiled from facing up to them. This would prove to be Alan Dulles' excuse to start a program called MK Ultra. MK Ultra is kind of fun. It's well known in conspiracy circles. I heard of MK Ultra when I was 8. If you're into that kind of thing, it's kind of part of the mythology. There's American mythology and the conspiratorial American mythology, and MK Ultra is a huge part of it. In 1953, Alan Dulles himself would commission this project, MK Ultra, for pretty much the goal of, can we commit to mind control and brainwashing and use it as a tool of war? He would harass Sidney Gottlieb to get a direct answer to his question. Could LSD be used to make people suggestible and available to be mindless assets? He often bemoaned the fact that Soviets had such access to test subjects, but found satisfaction when he started using prisoners, captured double agents, drug addicts, mental patients, and other people he deemed expendable. MK Ultra wasn't just one experiment, it was an entire way of thinking. It was several different experiments all under the same umbrella. The most provocative was, Operation Midnight Climax, where they would have a bunch of brothels and guys would come to the brothel, think they're getting like some good booze, a nice little drink, but they would slip LSD in there and they would just watch them with the prostitutes and see what they did with the prostitutes or lack thereof. Guys behind screens watching dudes getting high on LSD to see what they can get people to do. That is what the government was paying for. And Midnight Climax is not the most secretive name either. Like, that's my real issue with MK Ultra. Midnight Climax is not a real fucking... You know what it is once you hear it. You think orgasm. You couldn't get more creative than that with the fucking CIA. I'm not the CIA. I could be the CIA. I would like to be in the CIA, but it's the goddamn CIA. You couldn't come with a better name than that? You might as well call it Operation Hard On. You think it's Operation Hard On? What would that operation be? Viagra studies? Maybe. Are we part of Operation Hard On? I don't know. I don't take pills from my Jimmy. Oh, I don't know why he said that, but we'll be keeping it in. Allow me to read more from my notes. In other experiments where people were given LSD without their knowledge, they were interrogated under bright lights with doctors in the background taking notes. They told subjects they would extend their trips if they refused to reveal their secrets. The people under the interrogation were CIA employees, U.S. military personnel, and agents suspected of working for the other side. Long-term debilitation and several deaths resulted from this. Heroin addicts were bribed into taking LSD if with offers of more heroin. Everything was on the table, even old Nazi science, where they discovered mescaline was a powerful interrogation tool in the camps. There was literally like an aerial spray techniques that were passed down by Dr. Kurt Blum, the director of the Nazis' biological warfare unit in World War II. So we were just, doing some Nazi shit under the American umbrella. So it's not Nazi shit if we do it. It's for the purposes of freedom. It's not wrong. If we're doing it, that's the key. That's what Operation Paperclip taught us. That's going to be a future episode. They're not Nazis anymore. They're our Nazis, which makes them American. and they can just do whatever they want as long as they teach us how to do war better. And that's always been the CIA's idea. How can we do war a hell of a lot more efficient? And MK Ultra was part of that. And we had picked up on some of this from the Nazi experiments, and we're now doing it here in America. Why does that matter? Well, as we told you with Roger Smith, he was doing experiments on how drugs affected gangs and gang violence, seeing what is it that triggered them specifically with LSD and amphetamines. Enter another Smith at the same clinic Roger is at. David Smith. No relation, apparently. That's what makes me feel that both these names aren't real names, but I will grant them the reality of their names for now, as my notes dictate, or provide. David Smith had moved to the Haight Star-Free Clinic. Fresh out of UC San Fran, he had given up drinking, but picked up a taste for psychedelics, which one does. The free clinic he had started was run by volunteers and was a huge hit in the community, which anything free is a huge hit in the community because they were running around giving each other gonorrhea. Hippies who had nowhere else to go would receive treatment and possibly access to drugs by walking in. It was a scene within a scene, apparently, and where hippies were coming and going, and one of them was Charles Manson and Charlie's Girls, as David would talk about in his book, Love Needs Care. It was his memoir, which, what a fuzzy title that includes a whole bunch of Charles Manson memories. Love is love, man. Ain't nothing you do that isn't love, man. That's what he says in Mindhunter. If only we can just play that without getting copyrighted. David Smith went on to detail about Charlie's process as he observed it. Charlie would use LSD to get his crew to engage in unconventional sex practices. One of them was to ensure that men slept with men and women slept with women so they could break down all the barriers, as we spoke about earlier. They were truly free to anything and everything. You had to kill your ego. He created empty people who were waiting for ideas to be poured into them. And his insistences that the group would stay away from speed actually made him a weirdo in The Hague, because speed was more associated with violent crimes. He was just looking for mind expansion. So kudos to Charlie there. He saw the danger in giving his cult speed. Dad could lead some wild shit and went, nuh-uh. We're a bunch of LSD heads. That's where we'll stay for now. David observed the beginning of the idea of the race war brewing in Charlie's mind. I would contend he was just simply taking the ideas of stranger from a strange place and just making them real. Like, he had a cult, he had a nest of people. He needed to change the world, so what's going to get that done? By killing a lot of people, because killing's not the end. Death is not the end. You gotta free the spirit, which, oddly enough, was he remixing some of Scientology up in that bitch? I think so. David had been conducting his own LSD experiments at the time, but he was only doing them on mice, but it was similar to what Roger was doing. He was studying the effects on mice using LSD and amphetamines, or quite frankly, any drug really, to see how the reactions would be. Who would come around each other? Who would separate from one another? What do they do when they're all on the same drug? And he actually came up with an idea called the psychedelic syndrome. Acid taken by like-minded individuals usually reinforced the collective reality they shared. The more they dropped acid together, the more they became alike. Now take someone who's pre-psychotic, like a Manson, his tendencies, and you throw him into the mix. They become prone to mysticism and enhances their issues. Both Dave and Roger knew Manson was a psycho. They said it in Love Needs Care. They were highly aware of who that guy was. But these men had no problem hanging out with Charlie for long periods of time in that fucking clinic. This is where it gets a little bit more bizarre. And this is why we mentioned the CIA at the beginning. There was another man at this free clinic. He was a well-known man in MK Ultra lore. This was a guy who was running a hippie crash pad in San Francisco, where he too was doing Operation Midnight Climax type shit. Just wasn't with prostitutes, just hippies. He would have his, assistants lure hippies into this place, give them drugs, and just watch them and observe what the high did to them. He answered to Sidney Gottlieb, who was the head of the MK Ultra fucking program. And he also walked the halls of the same clinic as Dave Smith, Roger Smith, Charles Manson, Dr. Jolly West. So, you mean to tell me, and I'm trying to be fair here, Charles Manson, who's having delusions of a cult, Roger, who's keeping him from getting jailed, Dave, who's studying the things that Charlie's already doing on lab mice, is also sharing an office space with Jolly West, who's also conducting those experiments on humans already. He's already doing it. And you expect me to believe that David Smith and Jolly never spoke to one another, never introduced Charlie to Jolly. Charlie was there all the time. None of these people ever crossed paths magically. Just simple fucking coincidence. And the actual free clinic itself, funded by a CIA front. So was Charlie a CIA asset? On purpose or not on purpose? Was he a mistake made by MK Ultra? Maybe. Sounds a bit interesting, don't it? And here's the weird shit. None of this shows up in the court case of the Tate murders. None of it. This is never testified in court. They never even they barely mention his parole record, which his parole record you can't even get access to. And when you do, it's heavily redacted. Doesn't it seem a little weird? Just a tad bit weird? And maybe they didn't know what he would do next. But you kind of have to feel they're a little bit responsible. Charlie then goes on to Hollywood.
Pretty girl, pretty girl. Cease to exist. Just come and say you love me. Give up your world. Come on, you can't be. I'm your kind, oh, your kind, and I can see. Walk on, I love you, pretty girl. My life is yours.
So far what we learned, Helter Skelter wasn't necessarily an original idea. He got it from a book. He may have been getting experimented on by two people he kind of trusted to keep him out of jail, which they did. Dave and Roger were just, using him for their own fucking gain. Could he have been an indirect disciple or indirect project of MK Ultra? Maybe. But now he's in Hollywood, and what's the story there? He wanted to be a rock star. But now he was hanging out with stars, thanks to his family. They had been hitchhiking up and down the roads, and some of them had been picked up by Dennis Wilson because he was a groovy guy. Really nice dude. Just being a good Samaritan, picking up people and driving them home. particularly young girls who really needed a place to go. But then sometimes he would bring them home for what he would call milk and cookies. And I think we could all guess what milk and cookies were then, which is even weirder that he called it milk and cookies because a lot of the Manson girls were underage. So, sorry to ruin your Beach Boys fantasy. Let's just put allegedly right here. Allegedly. But kind of not allegedly, but allegedly. One day, Dennis Wilson comes back to his home after a late recording session. Nothing but naked girls in his living room, and Charles Manson with a guitar sitting in the middle of all of it. Charles realizing, well, can't just be showing him to a dude's house like this. It's kind of awkward for Dennis. He goes over to Dennis and kneels before him and kisses his feet, which is a thing Manson did to other dudes often, actually. This is what I've come to learn. Now, when he realized there was someone with power in the room and he had to humble himself, he went all the way down. He decided, burp, coming, is it? I don't know. It showed up. But he knew, he had to humble himself. So what did he choose to do? He kissed people's feet. He went the Jesus route. I don't know if he washed their feet, but he certainly kissed the hell of a lot of feet. And of course, if you're Dennis Wilson, you're a beach boy, you're a celebrity, this makes you feel good. Like, damn. The Beach Boys are so hot right now. I got grown men kissing my feet. And the truth is, they weren't hot at that point. Most of the 60s had forgotten the Beach Boys because everyone was into subversive shit. And the Beach Boys weren't subversive. So what happens? Dennis Wilson starts hanging out with Charlie. And Charlie's subversive. Charlie's got brand new ideas. He's got brand new lyric schemes. He's like working on some shit. He's got music, man, because he's been thinking about it because his cult and his church is gonna need some psalms. It's gonna need some songs, bruh. And this is what it's gonna be. Hopefully Dennis Wilson was gonna get him a contract, he thought. And he tried. He introduced him to Terry Melcher, who was the son of Doris Day, classic Hollywood. And Terry Melcher had told Manson to his face that, the songs are cool. They're okay. And that's what he led people to believe for years. That he had no intention of ever signing Manson to a contract. But that's not what we found out. No. He was trying to get Manson huge opportunities. He was trying to get people he knew to manage him. He even brought him to meet his mom, Doris Day. And Doris Day took one look at him and said, "God damn, Doris Day rules." She said this directly to Manson's face. "You're out of your fucking mind if you think I'm recording or producing an album for you." Fuck yeah, Doris Day. Laying down the fucking gauntlet, putting her foot down. Doris Day knew talent when she saw it. Her son was skeptical. I mean, he did produce The Birds, but Doris Day knew what was going on. Though one would say, had you just produced the record, maybe we wouldn't be here today. But let's not put this on Doris Day. Let's not put this on Dennis Wilson for not giving Charlie the proper credit. It's not Terry's fault he couldn't find a label to sign him, even though he was extremely wealthy. Maybe he could have put out the record himself. But it's not their fault. Charlie was crazy. It's kind of like my Hitler art school argument. Had they just let him into art school, and when you look at the art that was coming out of that art school at that time, he fit right in. They say he lacked creativity, but let's be honest here. Most kids in art schools lack creativity. That should never, ever be a strike against anyone. I've been to film school. These kids are fucking terrible. Hitler should have gone to art school, and maybe Manson should have got his record. Maybe the world would be better places then. Deep thoughts on This Will End in Darkness. Dennis loved fucking Manson, dude. He was getting interviewed in UK papers, and he was talking about how, man, life's so good. I'm living with like 17 women right now. And I got this guy named Charlie. We call him the Wizard. And he thinks he's Jesus Christ. But he's like so deeply profound. And he's helping me find a brand new sound, man. Brand new sound. Thanks, Charlie. Because the Beach Boys suck right now. Everyone knows the Beach Boys suck right now. and we gotta make a direction change. We gotta pivot, baby. And maybe we'll pivot to cult music and just some sexy, wexy stuff. And I know it's weird that me and Terry keep hanging out with a guy we claim not to like, but he's so cool. He's got young girls with him. And it's even weirder that me, Terry, and our friend Greg are known as the Golden Penetrators. And we're just penetrating all through Hollywood. And it's a name we frequently told people we went by because we're so fucking cool. Sorry. I slipped into a Dennis Wilson vibe there. I don't think I'll ever come back from it, really. But this was peak Manson, baby. Peak Manson. He wasn't just using fucking hippies anymore to do shit. He had a fucking Beach Boy, dude. And this extended to other family members as well. Remember Dean Morehouse, who quote unquote got Manson that job in Mexico that Roger Smith was trying to send him to go work on so he can actually do the cartel study? Well, let me tell you who Dean Morehouse really was. Dean Morehouse was a member of the Manson family, but his story is kind of fucked up. And we turn to Tom O'Neill's book, Chaos. Charles Manson's CIA and the Secret History of the 60s. Check it out if you get a chance. Here's what he writes about Dean Morehouse. He had been a peripheral member of the family, a wavering Protestant minister, insurance salesman, and married father of 3. He was living in San Jose when he encountered Manson in 1967, when the ex-con was fresh out of federal prison and hitchhiking. Morehouse pulled over to give him a lift, which turned into an invitation to dinner, which blossomed into a friendship of sorts. Morehouse, who strayed from the ministry and was himself on probation for forgery charges and was searching for something new and was eager to discuss spirituality. Manson was eager to oogle Morehouse's 15-year-old daughter, Ruth Ann. Before long, Manson absconded with Ruth Ann on a trip up the California coast, prompting her mother to report her to the police as a runaway. Dean Morehouse had left the marriage by then. He'd fallen under the spell of the 60s and had grown a long beard. By March 1968, he was in trouble with the law again, facing an arrest for contributing to the delinquency of a minor. Police had found him when they raided a home and searched for marijuana. Soon after, he was arrested again, this time for selling LSD. The legend is that Manson persuaded him to try it for the first time after he renounced his earthly possessions. Morehouse kept chasing his daughter, who remained with the family. Manson, who had rechristened her Ouish, O-U-I-S-C-H, Ouish, when Morehouse followed him to Dennis Wilson's house in the Pacific Palisades, Manson kneeled and kissed his feet, launching a charm offensive that effectively ended the conflict. Increasingly sympathetic to the family's philosophies, Morehouse moved to the back cabin and lived there rent-free in exchange for maintaining the landscaping. Manson had converted a one-time Christian minister. Peak of his powers, god damn it. Peak of his powers. And Terry Melcher was letting Dean Morehouse stay in the fucking Cielo Drive house all the fucking time. Cause that's where Terry used to live. He had his own room. Terry said you come and go as you please. So it doesn't seem that Terry and Dennis weren't really into Manson. It's like they were really into Manson, bruh. Almost too much into Manson. And I would also argue that when the murders happened, they were highly aware that it was Manson. And here's the thing. People always thought it was because they thought Terry lived there. But we learned recently, through more recent research, that that wasn't true at all. He actually knew where Terry lived. How do we know that? Greg Jacobson, their homeboy, had told people, well, Manson called me and asked me, did Terry Melcher own a green spyglass? I said yes. He said, well, not anymore, which meant Manson had stolen the green spyglass from his new house, not the old house. So clearly he knew where fucking Terry lived. But Cielo Drive meant something to him. That place was kind of a temple of despair where his dreams almost became true but didn't come true. So everyone else's dreams in Cielo Drive just weren't going to come true, now were they? Not on Manson's watch. And how else do we know that Terry fucking knew? Terry had seen Manson, according to another Manson family member, had seen Manson days after the murders and had gone to apologize to Manson, begging for forgiveness for not having attended a meeting or an appointment they were supposed to have. Melcher was also high on LSD at the time. And Manson had told them, we're all just little piggies, ain't we? And he had given their boy Greg Jacobson, a bullet and said, hey, I have another one for Dennis if he wants one, because he was so pissed at them for not committing to make the deal with them. And also because Dennis stole his song, Cease to Exist, and made a Beach Boys song, which we cannot legally play because copyright laws. The Beach Boys don't matter. They should be happy we even want to play the song. What's even weirder is that Terry wanted to go back to live in the Cielo Drive house after the murders happened. And, you know, the guy who owned the house, Rudy, was like, sure, I mean, I guess. I mean, if, in one sense, one could say that was probably the safest house in the fucking world now, because certainly they wouldn't try to kill people twice there. But Terry would just fucking be there a month, barely going outside. Some of Wojciech's clothes was still there, and he was seen wearing them. You see what I'm fucking talking about here? Like, Manson comes into contact with people and their fucking brains just break. Maybe Terry felt responsible for what happened to the people in that house because he didn't warn them of the guy who had been coming to see him when he was living there, being fucking weird, getting high and being fucking violent. But at the same time, there's another guy hanging around the Tates, Terry and Dennis, a mysterious man named Reeve Winston. Now, Reeve Winston, people say came out of nowhere. He was kind of like an extraterrestrial. Like, he just showed up and there he was. He was just living. And he always had a backstory, you know, or not really a backstory, but some story. Like, yeah, I work in intelligence. Yeah, whatever, man. Reeve's weird. And then you'd find out, oh no, he does work in intelligence. He does have connections to powerful people. This is a guy who knew Lakers GM Bill Sherman. He knew that guy. They hung out. His wife loved him, thought he was great. Everyone who met this guy would all say he's a mystery man, and you would think what he's saying is outlandish, but would turn out to be true. So the understanding was he was CIA by a lot of people in Hollywood. So Reeve Winston and Charles Manson are making the same rounds in Hollywood, which, once again, people knew Manson in Hollywood a lot more than what gets reported now. Apparently, Charlie Manson was like a Harvey Weinstein in Hollywood. You knew what he was kind of up to, but you weren't really getting involved. You knew what Dennis and Terry were up to, but you weren't really saying anything. That's just kind of how it was. So now these two people are making the rounds. And the night of the murders, Reeve Winston, I don't know why I keep saying his name that way. It kind of makes me giggle a little bit. Reeve Winston makes a call to a guy who's friends with the Tates, Shakro Otami, who is a photographer. And he tells him about, if the timing's right, an hour and a half before anyone else knew that the Tates had been murdered. And Reeve Winston sounded really fucking scared and flummoxed. That same night, his family reports that he went missing on August 8th and did not return till August 9th in the evening. And he was immediately debriefed by police, and that was it. No more came from it. Little odd, no? That he happened to know before anyone else knew? This guy who's believed to have CIA contacts and intelligence friends, but also friends with some of the most powerful people in Hollywood? Little sus. But then again, this whole story gets a little sus. Now you would think, Vince Bugliosi, district attorney, would surely put this in his prosecution case. No reason not to. Seems fishy that this and San Francisco and all of this shows gross negligence on an intelligence operation, if could be proven true. But he doesn't. Instead, his boss, Elville Younger, tells him how they're going to play it and directs Bugliosi in how he's going to prosecute this case. And why did he listen to him? Well, one, Bugliosi had fucked up a lot. He had beaten up his mistress. He had stalked his milkman who he believed impregnated his wife. He was kind of unhinged. That was a reputation. Not the one that's publicly accepted, but the one research where you find that no one believed the helter-skelter, hypothesis. No one in law enforcement anyway. Everyone knew there was something more to it, and Vince was there to tell a story to get a conviction. And Elville Younger was also old school OSS, which would eventually become CIA. And he was also friends with Nixon and would suggest to him to wiretap people and, give his opinions on domestic operations that could be done intelligence-wise. So, this brings me to how I look at all of this. Now, granted, a lot of this evidence is circumstantial. Certainly wouldn't hold up in a court of law. But as Jake Gyllenhaal said in Zodiac, just because you can't prove it doesn't mean it's not true. And here's where I stand. Manson was a criminal, yes. Ended up in The Hague, yes. Went to the free clinic, totally. Roger Smith liked him, was running his own experiments, covered for him. That's a personal thing between those two. David Smith, scientist, running experiments on mice, also likes Manson. Also likes being around his girls. Thinks it's pretty cool what he's doing. Realizes, I can learn a thing or two from this guy and how he does things. I can do that to my mice. He's actually doing what I've actually doing in the laboratory in real life. I should keep an eye on him. And he does. Jolly West happens to have an office there. Conveniently. Maybe Dave and Jolly trade notes. And they go, hey, I got this guy Manson. Should check him out sometime. Maybe Jolly talks to Gottlieb about it. Maybe Gottlieb tells him, we'll keep an eye on him. And when Manson arrives in Hollywood, who's also there? Reeve Winston. Was Reeve Winston there to check on Manson? I don't know. Keep an eye on him? I don't know. But what can be said is that after the murders were done, Charles Manson, or at least the Sharon Tate murders, he arrived after the murders were done to see what his children had done. And there were said to be gunshots and arguing hours after the murders had occurred. And he went back with an unnamed individual. But yet, Reeve Winston knew about the murders before everyone else. And the bodies have been moved, according to coroners. Not in the court case, by the way. None of this stuff makes into the court case because Bugliosi doesn't think it's warranted because his boss tells him it's not warranted. And because he's got a lot of shit on his fucking docket and he's in a situation where he can't really say no and can't really do anything. Elville Younger puts the pressure on him. And Vince didn't give a shit because Vince knew he was going to be a famous guy anyway. Vince was totally down to do the job that was asked of him. And if our guy Preston Gilroy is to be believed that there's 3 segments of the LAPD and how they operate, then sure, what we're dealing with here is an intelligence operation.
Can I go? I want to digress for a moment, get into the area of what constitutes most major police departments.
Yeah, go ahead.
I feel that within most metropolitan areas, people are policed by 3 different police departments, all within one police department. Now let's break that down. The first unit is the unit the public has contact with, the fellas in the black and white cars. They do a fantastic job in most cases. They find lost children, they get dogs out of trees, or cats, whatever's fair. They issue citations, they investigate traffic accidents, they do a pretty good job. Now, we have the second group. This is the tactical unit. They call themselves the TAC Squad or the Crime Prevention Unit or the Special Enforcement Bureau. Depends on what part of the state you're living in, what they call them. They all do basically the same thing. They're a unit usually of 50 to 100 men, hand-picked, and usually for their size, their aggressiveness, and their controllability, and their lack of sensitivity, lack of empathy. These men are used as an enforcement arm of the third agency within that police department I'm going to talk about. The third agency is the one that we want to get to. That is the intelligence unit. The intelligence unit, working closely with the department head, be he the sheriff or the chief of police, formulate departmental policy. They're like the CIA. They formulate policy and develop political attitudes and postures towards their dealing with militant groups. They're on the right and on the left. Of course, they don't care about the right. They don't care what the right does. Their only concern is what the left is doing. And they use the tactical unit as their enforcement arm, the way we would use the Army.
Yeah.
And if we ever see in this country, as Louis Tackwood has alleged, about the bomb which will be detonated at the
72 convention.
72 convention in San Diego, and then the ensuing riot, which will be instigated by provocateurs in the crowd. If this goes down, you mark my words, the people who will be going out and doing the majority of the arrests on the national emergency, which is going to be declared after this, if this goes down, will be these various TAC squads and tactical units. They'll be supported by the rank-and-file policemen. But as such, these elite little units will be responsible for kicking doors in and taking people out in the middle of the night, circa 1944, Nazi Germany. This is where we're coming to. I've worked with people who went onto these tactical units in LA County. I know what they're like. I know what their political philosophy is. I know what their mentality is. And intellectually, they frighten me. They really do.
A cover-up. To cover up an accident of MK Ultra. That's my working theory. Does it have legs? I would suggest checking out Chaos, written by Tom O'Neill. I would check out Manson, the Lost Tapes on Amazon Prime. There's a book called The Family you can read. I would say check out Love Needs Care by David Smith. I would read Helter Skelter. Just see what bullshit Vince Pugliosi was saying. I would look up all these books and documentaries and make the decision for yourself. Because I know where I fucking stand with it. Shit is sus. Highly fucking sus. God damn is it sus. Will we ever get a direct answer? No. Most of these people are dead. And the loose ends will always be loose. And, well, I think we also know how this one is going to end.